Welcome everyone to It Tastes Different Game Reviews. In this episode, we're reviewing SD Gundam Battle Alliance. SD Gundam Battle Alliance is developed by Art Dink and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment. Came out on August 25th, 26th, somewhere around there, of 2022. Came out on Switch, PlayStation, Windows, Xbox, basically everything. Everything but your calculator. You can't play it on there. This game is, well, it's about Gundam, except for your little chibis instead of the actual full Gundams. But it seems to follow, from what I can tell, it seems to follow like various series of Gundam animes is what it seems like. Because there's characters that come in that seem to be in different parts of the Gundam series and different series and stuff like that. But you basically go through here. It's an action role-playing game, co-op, single player, multiplayer. Got little story elements and cutscenes and various things like that. And basically you just go through there. You level up your mechs, your Gundams. You unlock new Gundams. Apply points. That's kind of the RPG element of it, is applying points into things such as health and melee power and range power and boost and various things like that. And you kind of just go to the story mode. You can go through the entire story mode together in co-op, which is cool. So we're going to go around and see what everybody thought of SD Gundam Battle Alliance. Pat, what did you think of SD Gundam?
Well, I've never been that huge of a Gundam fan. I mean, I liked the cartoons and all that kind of stuff when I was growing up, but I never got into much of the games. But this being co-op was kind of ripe for us. And I learned, because when I first started playing, I'm like, what the hell does SD Gundam? What is SD? Because there's all kinds of Gundam games. When you go out there, there's like mobile Gundam, there's this and that. And I guess SD is the name of the little bitty weird looking Gundams. It's called super deformed version of Mobile Suit. That's why they're tiny and little and don't look right, you know? So that was news to me. Like I said, I'm not a big Gundam fan. There's so many games out there. I'm like, what does this mean? So I had to look at that up and I'm like, okay, cool. But I mean, the biggest pain is just like figuring out what Gundam you want to play with, right? Because you can't get into the later levels and just play with the level 1 Gundam, because then you're just going to get steamrolled. So as you unlock Gundams by collecting the blueprints over time, you stumble upon ones that you like or a play style that you like, and you're hunting out those 3 different types of Gundam. They're like a melee, a range, and an all-arounder that works on all of them. So co-op, it's fun. If it was single player only, it would have lost some points for me because it is very repetitive. It's pretty much load up mission, run through mission, find all the boxes you can find that have all the cool, have different loot, kill all the enemies, find the secret enemies, and things like that, and then go kill the boss. And then rinse, repeat. So like it's, from what I understand, is this takes place in the Gundam G universe, which is a very, I don't know how to explain it. From what I read, is it's just a weird little amalgamation of all the Gundam stuff and false histories and things like that. And so it is kind of weird because you're in there fighting, and next thing you know, you get invaded by other Gundams and things like that, and break-ins, and that's your bosses and stuff like that. So co-op, very fun. Single player, it gets very monotonous very quickly because it is the same thing over and over. So being co-op is what kind of saves this game, because in my opinion, it's like Nick said, it's a little chibi. It looks very old school graphics, I guess it would have to if it's supported on the wide range of systems that it is. The Switch probably being the one that's dragging it down for all the rest of them on power and things like that. But it does look very cartoonish, very older graphics, not newer. So if that's kind of your thing, this doesn't look like anything modern. But it plays very well, in my opinion. Plays very well. Didn't run into really any issues except for Shane and his constant disconnects. He seemed about to be the only one. So I don't know if that's game, system, or internet or what, but Shane, what are your initial thoughts, man?
My issues were probably all 3, what you just described. I don't know. I looked online. I didn't see like it was a mass thing happening. So it's probably my internet provider who just got bought up by apparently just another crappier one. So awesome for me. But as far as the game goes, yeah, it's a Gundam game. I love anime. I am not a mech guy for anime. Most of the mech animes I just don't get into. Evangelion is probably the most popular one. I enjoy them to a point, but I've just never been a mech anime guy. So, but as far as I said, the game is fun. As far as the co-op goes, Pat is right. I don't think I could get into it with the single player playing by myself, but the multiplayer cooperative is fun. Calling out, oh hey, I've got a trust over here, blah blah blah. Those are the things that get you through is the cooperative part. I don't think it's that great and single player if you're not into the Gundam series. Uh, I have no idea what the SD stand for until Nick brought it up. I mean, I have no idea and never really thought about it. But as far as the game goes, graphics are exactly like Pat said. They're very old school, not terrible because of the style of games. So I don't think the graphics hindered it that bad just because of the style. You feel like an old Godzilla movie where you had a dude in a big costume running through a model. That's what the graphics kind of felt like. It gave you enough of that presence of size. To me, that's what it felt like. But I'm a Godzilla fan, so that's just old school stuff for me. But the combat was fun. The RPG elements worked out fine. My biggest complaint about the game, though, is lack of customization, visual customization of the Gundams. I think it could have used being able to paint your Gundam at least, but never came across that. And I don't know if it's something we're missing because to me that seems like a mech game that should be something you definitely should be able to do is customize your mechs. So that was kind of a bummer. That was probably my biggest problem with the game is the fact that you couldn't make your Gundam yours. If the three of us would have chose the same Gundams every time, it'd have been hard to keep up because they are identical. If you choose that same model. But, luckily we all had kind of roles we picked out for each other, Pat was, stay back and just bomb the living crap out of them. Nick was all up in their grill. I was kind of mid range with weapons and I'd come in with my sword attacks and whatnot. So we had we always kind of play those roles anyways in our games, but I just wish you could have customized because, a little more, make things a little more me. I want to be able to make my Gundams, green and blue or whatever. You can't. You're stuck with the generic version of it, which the Gundams all had a uniqueness to it. For the most part, I think most of them are pretty unique. You could definitely see ones that stood out over others. Like the one I ran with primarily, he was, I wouldn't say gold, kind of a copper, bronze kind of look. So that's about as cool as mine got, but there were some neat ones in there. Nick, what about you? You probably know more about Gundam than me or Pat.
Not too much. Probably about the same, really. I mean, I
You
used to
knew
watch
SD.
Gundam back in the day, but other than that, I don't remember much about it. It was a long time ago. So, as far as the game goes, the game's okay. It's very repetitive. Just like Pat was saying, it's very repetitive. Like every map, even though the maps are different as far as their structure and how they're outlined, what you do in the map is pretty much the same as what you did in the last 20 maps, right? You're just going from point A to point B, looking for treasure chests to get parts and upgrades. You can basically apply parts to your Gundams, which upgrade like their health maybe or melee, and they also have like status effects on those, like being able to do more. Maybe it ups your melee, but then it also ups your secondary weapon as well. Various things like that. Kind of those types of upgrades that you can apply. Parts is what they call them, and then. You can basically apply those to your Gundam and then your stats, and then your stats go up. You apply points into your stats, and then you can up that. You can overheat them or overarc them or whatever they called it in the game, basically by putting these other special points in there, and then it basically allows you to go beyond their limits, kind of. an over limit type thing. So you basically just apply more points because you're going to have to, right? It gets pretty hard, as you get towards the end. I will say this game is long. There's a lot of missions. There's a ton of missions. Like, we thought we were close to the end, and then just a whole slew of new maps opened up. And we're like, geez, this game keeps going. But yeah, I mean, the game's just okay. I mean, I like unlocking the Gundams. That's probably the funnest part. I wish you could customize them like Shane said, but you can't. But as far as the gameplay loop, right, going in and doing it, that's very repetitive. It's the same thing no matter what. If you were a fan of Gundam, I don't even know if you would like this as a fan of Gundam. And the reason why I say is you would probably like some aspects of it, but they do a lot of talking. There's a lot of talking in the game, and there's especially a lot of communication between characters during your mission. But you're so busy fighting, and it's all in Japanese. So unless you know Japanese, it's so busy. You're so busy fighting other characters that you're not going to be able to read what's going on down below. So you just hear them all chitter-chatting, talking about whatever the case may be. I mean, some story element, or like maybe in one of the Gundam animes, these two characters are fighting, because it seems to bring in set characters from the anime, like ones that people would know. Like, there were some Gundam portraits and some Gundams that I knew. I was like, oh, I recognize that from some Gundam, right? That character or that actual Gundam. I've seen that before. So this is a crucial character from one of the series, but they're all speaking Japanese and I can't understand a word they're saying. So, and it's all happening while you're fighting. And that's the thing that kind of sucks, is because if it was in English, you would know what they were talking about, what was going on, but you don't have time to sit there and read because you're trying to progress and kill enemies. And there's also a timer. I don't know if you guys saw, but there is a time limit on every map. So while the time limit is like 30 minutes and you're going to probably complete the map in probably about 10 to 15, if you do no scouting whatsoever, you're going to complete a map in probably 5 minutes because they are very short maps. That's kind of the nice thing about it, except for some were really long. It was kind of a weird combination. You would have these really short maps, and then you would have these really big sprawling maps that would take a lot longer. But overall, I agree, though. The game is definitely, I would say, worth playing if you're going to play with your friends, right? I think you're going to have the most fun out of it that way. Single player. The only thing with the co-op is you don't get the cutscenes. So there's cutscenes in between these various missions and stuff. And that part is taken out for the co-op portion. So if you want to get the cutscenes and read through that, then you'll want to play it single player. You do get two other mechs with you that go with you, just like in co-op, where basically they're kind of your support as you go through. But in co-op, they basically play the other characters. But the nice thing is progression for everyone. So everyone gets to progress, and all their stories progress and unlocks, and all that stuff progresses together. So you don't have to worry about like having the host progress and everybody else is just kind of helping, which is nice. A lot of co-op games I know we played recently don't have that progression for everyone, and that always sucks when we play those, because then we have to play it 3 times, right? But yeah, overall this game is just okay.
Yeah, I think the customization stuff, without knowing the game history, is probably why that's in your mind there, Shane. Is because basically from what I was reading, because I was like, what the heck is going on here? And so I kind of read up a little bit on it. Basically says the story takes place in the G universe, where Gundam canon twists and turns in ways no one could predict. To correct the world's distorted history, the player leads a 3-unit squadron consisting of mobile suits and pilots from across Gundam history. So you're not customizing those Gundams because you are collecting historical Gundams for your collection, and basically you're going into this combat with and you're basically experiencing Gundam's historical combat, most famous combat scenes, and things like that. So it's instead of it being like a more story driven, it sounds like it's just very much more battle driven, where you're just going from historical battle to historical battle in the Gundam universe and correcting the outcomes of those battles, and things like that. So I mean, but I'm not a fan of the little SD. If SD is the scrunch down and thing, then that makes sense. I'm not a huge fan of that myself, but as Nick was saying, it is fun with your friends. Without friends, I probably wouldn't have made it very far, because it is very repetitive and you see the same thing over and over. you got to find that Gundam that meets your play style and upgrade him, like Nick said. And the only way to upgrade him past certain levels is you have to find this material that's only found further and later in the story. So you have to keep progressing if you want to keep leveling up your favorite Gundam that you've unlocked. And some Gundams seem to take forever to unlock. So these must be the super ultimate, ultra powerful Gundams, right? Because it's like I get 12% every time I complete a level that has one of those in there. And I'm like, come on, where's the rest of it? So there's a lot of Gundam games. Let's just put it that way. So, and I don't really know if I played very many of them. I probably have not over the course of my gaming time frame because while I don't mind the mech games, I find, and these games may not be that way, but from old Mech Warrior games and stuff like that, is the controls just get too overbearing, and you're doing too much management of other things rather than that. And I don't know if the Gundam games are that way either. So I've only played this one that I can think of off the top of my head. I probably played others, but they weren't memorable enough for me to remember them. But if you've got 2 other friends, this is a game for you. If you have 4 friends total, you plus 3 more, this is not the game for you guys because it's only 3-player co-op. That's it, 3-player co-op. So if you and your buddy have a third wheel, this is a good game for you.
Yeah, it's not a $60 game, even with co-op. It's a $30 game. It is too long though. I don't typically have a problem with that in a game, but this one, because of the repetition of certain maps, and because you go back to the same map several times. And there's one in particular, it's like a neo retro. It's like you're in a simulator kind of thing. You go back
the
to
arena simulator,
times.
yeah.
The arena one, yeah. It's annoying, especially that one. I do not like that one. It's not a $60 game. It's a $30 game. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it with you guys, and that's the only reason I enjoyed it. It's just not a single player game, and that is primarily because I'm not a Gundam person, so I'm just not a mech person at all. Unless Steel Battalion, you give me the controller, then I'll be all about the mech. But I just don't get into it. And one thing I wish they would have done is used traditional anime to do scene work and stuff like that. I think that would have been kind of cool. That pulled you in a little bit more because if it's based on an anime, my feeling is you should use the anime. That's one thing I don't like about the Dragon Ball games is they don't use the actual anime in the games. Naruto, they don't use the actual anime in the games. I want the anime. So, that's nitpicky though. That's a personal preference. So, but the game is fine and it's fun with 3 players, but that's it. Only with 3 players. I don't even think 2 of us would have been able to handle it by ourselves. So,
yeah, and I agree with Nick. It's probably got a really good story, but I have no clue what's happening when we're battling because I'm more focusing on killing the enemies than the banter going back and forth between the Gundams. And when people jump in, it's like, okay, I get to read a little bit while they're jumping in, and then it's like, okay, but I don't have the mental capacity to focus on the combat and read the subtitles, So they should have dubbed this, to be honest with you. It may have been a little bit more. We may understand a little bit more what's going on if it was dubbed, because during combat it's too hectic to just focus on the what they're saying back and forth, because they are constantly going back and forth with their discussions and stuff. And every time you have a break in, whether it's an ally break in or an enemy break in, they start having a sidebar conversation between good guys, bad guys, and everything in between. And you're just like, I have no clue what's going on. This guy's jumping and flying all over the place and screaming like bloody murder, and it's just stuff's going off and you have no clue what's going on. You're just like, I'm just going to focus on shooting this thing and staying away from it, So, but I find it fun with friends. I would not have played so much if it was by myself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's something else. I agree with Shane though. It's definitely not a $60 game. It is fun with your friends, but if you want to pick it up, I would suggest probably waiting till it goes on sale, a pretty good sale, and then you could probably play it. Pick it up and play it with your buddies over the weekend or something like that. But other than that, it is very repetitive. There's a lot of story there, but again, like we said, the it's spoken in Japanese and just subtitled, and like Pat said, when they're talking during the missions, I mean, it's from like the beginning of the mission to the end, like they're just constantly chattering, like the little subtitles are up there pretty much 24/7 because they're all talking back and forth, but you're too busy trying to do stuff to be able to read what's going on. So and I agree, I don't like the chibi style. That's one thing that kind of that's not appealing to me. I don't like that little chibi style that they do with here. I would rather have the full on Gundams. Those would look a lot cooler than that little squished down version of them, but it is what it is. That's the type of game that they wanted to create, and so they did. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I recommend it if it's on cheap, but otherwise I wouldn't recommend this game if at full price. I would recommend it on the cheap. Otherwise, for me personally, stay away, and unless it's cheap and you want to play something co-op. But do you guys got anything else you want to add to this before we wrap it up?
Not unless that Gundam comes with a coupon.
Right. It might. I don't know.
They're gotcha Gundams. Got to go get the capsule machine so you can get you some of those nice little SD style Gundams out of the capsule machine.
Yep.
Hang them on your backpack.
That's probably what it's based on, like the gotcha machines or something like that.
Probably.
Those little Gundams or little toys that you can get out of the gotcha machines. All right. Well, anyway, let us know down below in the comments. Thanks everybody for watching, but let us know down in the comments, what have you played SD Gundam or any of the Gundam games? Let us know if any of them are good. If there are any Gundam games, maybe older ones, especially, I play a lot of retro stuff. So is there any older Gundam games that may be worth checking out? Just let me know. Other than that, let us know down in the comments, but make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. You already made it to the end of this video, so you might as well hit the subscription button and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notifications to stay up to date with new videos that we do all the time. We'll see you next time.
See ya.